Alright, cage is done. I don't think it looks bad at all. Underneaths are a little rough. It was hard to get the nozzle in there, but yeah, it's all in. Shine some light. Front is all done. That was the hardest area to get into. I mean, looks okay. It's all in. The door's shut. Barely. It hits right there, but maybe that'll contour to that. I don't know. We'll see. But seam seal all the floor pans real good. It might even seam seal around the welds some, and then paint it with I see a lot of people brush painting theirs with that Rust-Oleum hammered house paint. I mean, you think you gotta have some good paint getting in and out of the car. You're probably gonna. These wells back here look really good. And this was a pre-notched kit, but most of it was not notched. My buddy from high school did it for me. And if you have all the interior out and you have a pre-notched kit like this, he only charges 500 bucks. If y'all want a cage put in by him, just give me a holla. He give me a little bit of a friend's discount. So it only costed us, I don't know, 600 bucks, 100 bucks for some 700. And a buddy of mine hooked me up with some gas and stuff. So I had a lot of friends help me on this, and I appreciate every single one of y'all. But yeah, we're gonna, first I'm gonna wire wheel it all out, all that carpet deadener stuff, wire wheel all the, yeah. And then I'm gonna vacuum it all out. I'm gonna wipe it down with some mineral spirits and a rag. And then I'm going to seam seal all the floor pans. And then I don't know if I'll use that Rust-Oleum hammered paint on the floor as well. I don't know. We'll see. It'd probably be a good idea. That's real thick paint, and then, you know, if you put spray paint down there, it's just gonna scratch and rust. But yeah, everything looks good. It's the cage. Blue boot. A little bit rough in the underneath spots in some areas, but all in all, I think it's okay. Alright, I wire wheeled it and then cleaned it out with some mineral spirits. And then mineral spirits dang near choked me to death. It's still a little, I didn't do no awesome job, but I got good enough to throw on some of that thick paint just to protect it from rusting. No, there's still a spot over there. But yeah. Some of the rust just, it wouldn't come off, but if you put paint over that, it won't rust. It'll stop the rust. And that's what we're going to do, because all this is going to be covered up. I'm not that worried about it. But yeah, looks a lot better when it's got all the carpet dinner scraped out of it. Alright, I scrubbed everything out. And then I seam sealed all the welds. That seam sealer, it's thick. It works pretty good. I think I'm going to use it around the welds too. Plus there was some little bitty holes here and there I had to patch up with it. And I did the other side. But now I put it on them welds too. And that's going to look a lot better when I smooth that out a little bit. Crap gets everywhere. But yeah. I got some paint. I got some roll-on paintbrush paint. I'm just going to paint everything. That's where I'm at. Next, while that's drying, I won't be able to paint till tomorrow until that dries. I'm going to hang these fuel lines down here. And battery lines. Now I got to break the brake and fuel lines all routed through here. Really good. Definitely not going nowhere. I might put another one right there. Yeah, I'll probably put another one right there. But it's mounted really good in the back. We had some smaller ones for the fuel line, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't trust those. They got too tight on the line. And it felt like it was crimping the line, so. So back here I used the big ones, and then I just zip tied the fuel line to the big one. And up there. And around the rear end, just like that. That should be fine. Now I'm going to take the drive shaft out. And see about putting this drive shaft lip in. I don't know if we're going to be able to or not. Chris has to order a different drive shaft. That drive shaft right there is too short. But anyway, I'm going to mark it up there with this marker I got in my hand. And see how much is even in there. But the drive shaft is supposed to go right here. But as you can see where that U-joint's supposed to be about 2 inches forward, I don't think it's going to fit right there. Now if it was just the drive shaft there, if you had the right length of drive shaft. But we got stuff to fix that. He's got a 1350 yoke to go on the rear end. We just got to put it on, do some measurements, and then order another drive shaft. Alright, so looking at the picture, I've got it the way it's supposed to go. But those bolt studs for the shifter are keeping it from going all the way up in there. There's one on each side. And those are keeping it from going all the way up in there. Oh, also, that is the right drive shaft. It's just got a really long shaft on it. When I push it in, it only goes in 1 inch. And it comes out a lot. So, I've never seen one that long like that before, but that's the way it's supposed to go in. That's the way they're supposed to go. I mean, you should have 1 inch of play in, and that's what it's got. and it comes way out. So those rear shifter bolts were getting in the way. I bet where those things were so long, I bet a nut and bolt coming up the other way would be fine. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some nut and bolts and bring up the other way. And that should be fine. Just put the bolt side down. Because those things were long. They were like riveted in there. So, yeah, pulled those out. If anything, I can just tack weld that on and seam sew those holes, but I think a bolt would be just fine from the bottom. Because that's how long they were down. I mean, if you compare it to a bolt head, look at the difference. But you can get them bolt heads with a small bolt head. But that should make the difference there. But if anything, we'll just tack weld it in. All right, the drive shaft loop is in. And it's about 5.5 inches from the center of the U-joint. It's supposed to be 6. So that works out good. And it's right where the picture shows it's supposed to be. It's a little crooked, but not much. But yeah, that'll work. Now to put the drive shaft back in the back there. All right, today I'm hooking up the Tach and the shift light. And the red and the white are the power wires for both of them. And then green's the ignition source for the Tach. And yellow is the ignition source for the shift light. And we're just running that to one of those. I don't think, this one says, I know the Tach, it don't have a memory or anything like that, so it don't matter. The red and the white can go to one power wire. But the shift light says dome light, or yeah, your dome lights, or your, you know, switch panel lights. And then it says accessories for the red. So it doesn't sound like it needs a constant power either. I'm just thinking the white maybe dims it some when it's when you got your lights on. But because it says white switched lights and then red accessory. Accessory would be the switched on power. And then some of them, you know, when you turn your lights on, it'll dim it a little. Yeah, I'm just going to run them all to one, like, switched on power. And hopefully that'll be okay. If not, then we'll run the red one to, if that one has a memory that doesn't lock in, then we'll run the red to a 12 volt power source, continuous. I've already hooked up the input signal for the shift light. The Tach is the green, the shift light's the yellow. I hooked up all 4-port power wires, and then I just got to hook up the ground. But if you look at the instructions, the white says dash lighting, and then 12 volt accessory, which is a switched on power. So usually when it goes to dash lighting, when you turn the lights on, it dims it a little when it comes to something like that. But we ain't worried about that. It can be bright at dark. We don't care. Actually, now that I think about it, if we leave that light hooked up, then if that power to that white is a dim mode for when you have your lights turned on, we might need to disconnect that one completely and just not even use it, so it doesn't stay on dim mode. I'll have to research that a little bit more. So I'm just going to mount the Tach right there for now. And then I'll have to figure out something different so we can maybe put it, I don't know, figure something out. But as for right now, that's where it goes. Now this thing, I'm still confused about what that white wire actually does. I'm pretty sure it dims it. But if you can see, it's pretty bright as it is. I mean, even in the daytime, you can see that. And both these buttons scroll through what you want to see. And then you hold it down and it sets it. And I was just making sure it saved my settings. After you get it on the settings, so you find what you want, shift point, hold it down. And then this is the down button and that's the up button with my thumb. The right side's the up button, the left side's the down button. But either one of them scroll through. And then you can hold either one of them down to get in it. And then you just go up or down. And I just set it at 2000 now, just to see the difference. But I mean, I might just leave that wire hooked up because that's bright as hell. I mean, if you shine it in your face, it'll blind you. 4 is the highest setting. So I'm thinking just with that white wire on, it dims this. And I mean, you can see that plain as day. But I don't know. I mean, it is kind of dark out here. But yeah, you can see that no matter what. But that's where you set the ignition. And for an 8-cylinder on an ignition box, which I'm pretty sure that's what he's got that wire coming off of, it's supposed to be set at 4. So I'm just making sure that it saved the settings with the key off for a while. And it did. Because I set it at 4 brightness, 2000 shift point, just because I want to see how it works, revving the motor up. And we'll change that. But now to put some wire loom on this stuff and tuck the wire back down in there and figure out where to mount this. So I did wind up unhooking the white wire from the shift light. It didn't seem to make any difference to me, but I mean, it's bright outside, but it's kind of dark in the garage. But I don't know. But I tried to set it right there, but it didn't want to stick. I cleaned it off a little bit. Probably best to stick it to the windshield, but I'll let Chris figure that out. Once we get the seat in, he's sitting in the car. Make sure he sets it where he wants it. Alright guys, so now I'm wiring up the fuel pump. I already drained all the 110 out of the fuel cell. I need to hook that back up. I'll do that here in a minute. I set the car back down on the ground also. The fuel cell, the nipple, it's not all the way on the bottom, but that fuel cell's kind of canted at the bottom, so there still is a little bit of 110 in there, but not much. But I let the back of the car down as it drained, and I drained it back into the jug with a funnel. And then I left it unhooked and draining, and I lifted the front end up off the little homemade jack stands there, and it even drained more out. And then set it down on the ground. But what I'm doing now is I'm putting in a relay, and I'm going to use it for the ground. We're going to run the power to the pump straight over to the back of the alternator. We've got everything run to the back of the alternator on this thing. Christopher needs to get some kind of power strip, I would think. Nah, I don't see what the difference will be. The battery runs to the back of the alternator. Actually, it runs to the back of the starter. Then it runs from the starter to the alternator. But anyway, those cables are connected. But anyway, I'm going to run the power to the back of the alternator, and then the ground I'm going to run through a relay. I don't trust that switch running that pump. That pump, it takes some amps to turn it. And running through that switch, I don't know if it'd handle it. And that's what these relays are for. It's to keep the high amps out of your switches. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to run the ground through this. So what you got here is you got this right here. This is the ground. And this is your switch 12 volts. Now, when there is no 12 volts here, this is just grounded. When there is no 12 volts here, these two are connected. Just like the two wires, people say open and close, and when they say that, I get confused. These two are just like if the wires were connected together. These two are. When there's no power here and no ground. No power or ground here. Now when you got ground here and power here, then these two are connected. So, yeah, I mean, there's many different ways you can do this, but I unhooked the middle wire because we're not going to be using that one. There's nothing going to be used for that. So what I did was I'm running a ground through here. So I'll run the ground fuel pump to here, and then I'll run this out and I'll ground it, which I've already done. There's the ground for the switch itself to turn, or for the relay itself to turn the relay on, the white wire. And then the black wire is this one right here. And then I'll run the fuel pump here. And then since we've already got these two grounded, these two grounded. We've got these two grounded, which it doesn't matter. I could ground these two or ground these two. And then hook the fuel pump up here. I've got them grounded here, so the ground for the fuel pump's here. So when 12 volts hits here, these two connect. These two on the outside, just like if the wire was connected. Now when there ain't 12 volts here, it's like these two are connected, but I took that wire completely out. As you can see, it was the blue wire up there. I just pulled it out of there. So here's the ground for the fuel pump. Here's the ground. The black's the ground for the fuel pump. The white is the ground for the relay itself. The red is the power for the relay to turn the relay on to send it from this green wire, which looks blue on my camera for some reason. But it's green from this green. So all I got to do now is I've hooked the switch here, and then I'll hook the ground side of the fuel pump here, and I about dropped it, and then I'll mount the relay on that bolt right there. Yeah, all I got left to do is bridge into the switch inside the car with this wire, and then just run this one to the negative side of the fuel pump, and then run the power over to the alternator. That's it. Alright, got everything buttoned up out here. The red is to the switch to power the relay. This green one still looks blue when I'm looking at it on the screen. The green one goes around up in the wire loom, stuck it all down in there, comes out right there, and is the ground for the pump. Then the red I got coming over here to the alternator, and then when the relay gets turned on, it'll be like contacting this green wire to this black wire, and the black wire is grounded, so it's the ground for the pump, and the white's the ground for the relay. So 12 volts, boom, this ground switches over to this black ground switches over to here and grounds the pump out. And then we've already got power to the pump right there. Now to tie into the switch, I've already unhooked that red wire. So you gotta hook that black wire into that red wire, and then hook that back up. Then I'll put fuel in the fuel cell, because you don't want to run them fuel pumps dry, and it's dry right now. And we'll turn it on and see if it works. Alright, I got it all wired in there. Now to put in some Pro Nitrous Extreme. This stuff is 123 octane rating. And it's a little bit pricey, so hopefully I don't spill none. But yeah, we'll get her filled up and we'll test it. We're full up to the foam. Now I'll take the battery out and see if it works. Alright, battery is hooked up. It's hard for my fat butt to get in here. Keys on. And nitrous switch. Ooh, and I hear a fuel pump. Can't see because of the glare. Nitrous mini came on. Fuel pumps are running. Let it run for a little bit, make sure there's no leaks and nothing starts smoking. But yeah, sweet deal. And then I can, yeah, look at that. Just flooded the battery. Solenoids are kicking on and everything. Woo woo, everything's working. Alright, so the next thing to do is to put this panel on for the switches. Of course, we got to drill some holes. Now, usually, these cars have two holes for the dial indicator. The dials for the radios, them old radios. They have the dials, but everybody cuts those out and they put, you know, the newer radios in there. And this thing is supposed to use those holes to mount. So, you know, this is all the hardware they sent. You would think there would have been some more hardware with this. I forgot where he got it from, but I guess you got to figure out how to get it to stay in there. So I'm probably just going to super glue around the edges, because I don't know any other way to do it. With it having just that one big hole, I mean, there's really nothing. I don't know. Maybe I'll just stick it in there, drill the holes, stick the gauges or stick the switches in there, and let Chris figure that out. But I don't know. Boy, this thing kind of sucks. I was barely even drilling on it. I barely even pressed. And I had the drill turned down going slow. And it cracked it right there, and these pieces flake off. Alright, it's in. And actually, with the buttons on it, it don't look too bad, except for beside the purge button. That looks really bad. I had to do it all over again. I'd use a smaller drill bit, just big enough for like a Dremel sanding wheel, and then use the Dremel sanding wheel to enlarge the holes. I had to do that on the purge button, because the purge button was bigger than the other two, and it sanded it really good. So if I had to do it all over again, I'd use a small bit, just big enough to get a Dremel sanding wheel in there, just, you know, one of them round ones, and hollow it out. Live and learn, I guess. Also, I just super glued it in there. I used that Loctite glue that looks like a super glue bottle with the push handles on each side. And I stuck it in there and I just held it up there for 5 minutes, and my arm got tired. And it's staying. Alright, I hooked up the battery and rechecked everything. Everything still works as it should. The far right one's the fan. It'll come on whether the key's on or not if you flip that switch. The middle's the purge, and the left is the nitrous. Well, I was going to start it up and match the shift light with the Tach, but the battery's dead. It's at 47%. It's like at 9 volts. So we'll get that charged up. I'm going to let the dog wants to constantly play fetch. Anybody want to play fetch with a dog? This thing will play fetch constantly. I'm going to let this seam sealer dry a little bit more. I'm I'm not really going to sand it out of the floorboard because look at the factory seam seal job. They got that stuff everywhere. But on these right here, definitely going to sand that down, try to make it look pretty. And then tomorrow I'm going to vacuum it out again. And then start throwing paint to it. I guess there's really nothing else left to do except for paint it. Oh, and I got to paint it, tack weld that down, or drill another hole where that one is. We probably get a bolt through there. I'm just going to tack weld it. Tack weld that down. Find a place to mount those. Tack weld that down and paint it. It's really, and put the carpet interior seats in the center console in. That's really all left to do. But yeah, I just wanted it. We have a dyno Thursday, and we'll definitely get y'all some videos of that. But I just wanted to get it ready for the dyno. And to have the dyno, we had to have the tack. Didn't really need the shift light, but hook those up together. And we needed the fuel pump to come on with the nitrous. Remember, I just put that fuel pump on not too long ago, and it hadn't been wired yet. So I hate that I broke that plate like that. Chris paid like 50 bucks for that. I'd say it's closer to 60 with the shipping. It sucks. Plus I got some seam sealer out here when I was getting out of the car. My hand touched right there, so I gotta scrape that off. There were scratches from the hood falling anyway. But we're gonna go get some, we're gonna go buy a bunch of paint from Walmart, just spray paint. And sand it down and rattle can it. We're gonna do them both like that. Because I mean, we work on these cars and they get scratched, and the hoods, we put his hood on top because his don't have, you know, it's not a bolt end, so, and it falls and it scratches up the car, and you know, plus we're working on these things all the time, and the last thing we want to worry about is scratching the car. So these cars will never have an immaculate paint job. Well, mine won't anyway. I don't know what Chris will decide one day, but as of right now, we're just flat blacking them. I need to do that one. But every time I figure I'm going to do something else with it, like cosmetics, something breaks. I mean, all last season, I got a few good passes in on motor. But other than that, man, crank sensor twice with the torque head kit. I thought for sure I'd go to torque head and I'd never have an issue again. Wrong. I've had more issues with crank sensors than I ever had with an optical sensor in the Opti. But that, I bought a really expensive sensor to put in there now. So hopefully that issue won't happen again. And then the transmission went out, and then the radiator busted, and now the motor blowed up. So, I don't know. Hopefully that one's just got a froze main bearing, and I can just pull it out and get the crank turned, rebearing it, and put it back together. But if the crank's ruined, then I'll have to buy another crank, have it all rebalanced, and then put it back together. But I don't know. We'll see when we dig in there. I don't plan on even digging into that car for at least a month. Maybe next month. But yeah, I'm sure I'll get y'all some videos after it's done painted and the interior back in it. But I'm going to end this video right here, and y'all have a great day.